Hello students, this is Dr. N. Venkatachalapathi, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. I would like to discuss on explosive welding. In a manufacturing process, we have studied metal casting process, fabrication process. In the fabrication process, another interesting advanced welding process is explosive welding process. As I discussed earlier, the term welding can be defined as it is the process of joining to similar metals or dissimilar metals by adding filler metal, without adding filler metal, with application of pressure and temperature, without application of pressure and temperature. This is what a technical definition. In this case, we have studied so many fabrication process. In that, another interesting and advanced welding process is explosive welding process. Look at what is meant by a explosive welding process. So in this explosive welding process, it is a solid state welding process. Explosive welding is a solid state welding process where the welding is accomplished by accelerating, that is increasing speed, increasing velocity of one of the components at extremely high velocity. This is what very interesting. High velocity through the use of chemical explosives. So the name itself explosive welding, in the sense the explosion takes place with the help of chemical explosives. Based on that, the joining can be occur. So this is what in this diagrammatic representation can see this is the workpiece, metal or workpiece, and there will be a jet where it can able to flow high velocity of the component, and there will be cladding. Cladding is the process where joining the two dissimilar metals, and above that there will be explosive layer and detonation. Detonation, that means blast can be occur. Due to that detonation of that explosives, the joining can be occur. I hope the student the clearly understand that in an explosive welding process, another interesting point is a standoff distance. So whenever the standoff distance is very important, the distance will be is 2 times of x. We will call for the thin sections. When you wanted to do thick section, directly exactly same distance will be maintained. So this is what about that standoff distance also plays a vital role in order to perform the joining of the two dissimilar metals. So this explosive welding process, this process is often, we can also call it as a cladding process. That is clad carbon steel plate with a thin layer of corrosion resistant material. What is by corrosion resistance? So all metals are corroded due to rust formation. Even there will be a water kept, means some rust, some eroding of the metals takes place in the stainless steel, nickel alloy steel, titanium, zirconium. All these metals are the corroded. So these are the very corroded. To can be eliminated, you should be able to clean the metal, that is a stainless steel or nickel alloy, titanium or zirconium will clean effectively, so that you can able to perform welding clearly. So another interesting point here I would like to add, due to the nature of this process, isn't it? Due to the nature of this process, there will be producible geometries. So there is a geometry, in the sense it is a square, rectangular, and any polygonal shape of the geometry are very limited to do it. And a typical geometry is produced, which includes plates, a simple rectangular plate, triangular plate, okay, and some of the tubings and tube sheets can be easily made by this explosive welding. So from the diagram you can clearly observe that there is a workpiece metal, and in between that there is a cladding. Cladding is a bonding between the two dissimilar metals takes place. That is why clad is one of the most widely used technique in the explosive welding process. And above the clad layer you have to suppose to kept the explosives, that is some of the chemical explosives, so where you can able to detonate that explosives, the performance of the fabrication will be occur. Okay, so this is what the some basic technical definition of the explosive welding process. So that is why the term explosive welding is a solid state process or solid phase process, where the welding is accomplished by accelerating one of the components at extremely high velocity. So in this jet provide a very high velocity through the use of chemical explosives. Whenever the explosive will detonate, will struck, will put starting of the explosives, there will be a lot of huge velocity, high velocity will enter into that metal so that the joining can be performed. Obviously, this process mainly depends upon the cladding process, where the metals such as corrosion resistance materials such as stainless steel, nickel, alloy, titanium alloy, zirconium. These are some of the basic important materials where you can perform this explosive welding. But here there is no filler metal can be used. Especially in explosive welding, there is no filler metal. Only the joining can be occur due to explosion takes place on the chemicals. Okay, due to chemical explosives only the fabrication can be occur, and that is why it is a solid state fusion process, solid state uh, process. Okay, so now let us see the again what is the basic principle involved in the explosive welding process. So in this 3D diagram, you can clearly understand what is meant by explosive welding. So look at in this 3D diagram of there are different type of plates. One is a target plate and a flyer plate. This is called flyer plate, and where the above cladder there will be explosives takes place. How the explosion will be taken place like this. Whenever the detonation front and detonation of back, and there will be a metallurgical weld line. So that blasting or explosion takes place, some weld line will be parallel and some inclination will be occur. So whenever that collision point, you can see this is the angle of that baker plate to a flyer plate, there will be an inclination. So whenever after explosion takes place, that angle will be taken place to get the flat joining can be occur. Okay, so that is why in this explosive welding process, a compressive force is created. So what happened? Whenever this there will be a one backer plate and one inclination plate. Okay, in inclination plate, in this case the here above that there will be a flyer and one explosive will be takes. So these are the explosives. Okay, so due to that explosion, this angle will to join to each other effectively. So that is why here the joining parts which are arranged toward each other at an angle of 1 to 15 degrees. 1 to 15 degrees angle should be kept depending upon the material and method. They are prepared with clean and the layer of explosive on the top. Whenever the detonation of the explosives, so the compressive force will be created, and so that the joining can be occur due to metal sheets. Overlapping of the sheets can be done easily. So this is what the a fundamental principle of explosive welding. Majorly, it have a some target plate, fire plate, and some of the what you called jet. The velocity flow, high velocity will process through the jet, and there will be a inclination between a target plate to flare plate 1 to 15 degrees. Above the cladder, you should provide some explosives. These explosives will be detonated with the uh, applied compressive force created, so that the joint can be occur very easily. So this is the general principle involved in this explosive welding. Now let us see the what about this explosive welding. What is the main function of flare plate, and what are the explosives where you can kept, how the detonation will be takes place, and what the joinings. There will be a plate, that is a parent plate, can be kept in the anvil in order to maintain the smooth that is distance. Okay, so let us see the main purpose of flyer plate. So this is in any explosive welding process, flyer plate plays an important role, vital role. Why? Because Because of this only, accelerated by use of explosives. Above the flyer plate only you can keep some explosives, some chemical explosions, chemical explosives. Whenever the detonation will be takes place, whenever detonation will be takes place, due to that high compressive force only, the flyer plate will come to the parent plate and joining together occur. So majorly, whenever the explosives done, there is a hits on the base plate at very high velocity. Due to this highest impact, the highest compressive force only, the plastic deformation takes place and the molecular diffusion also happen between the two plates, so that the joining can be done easily without adding a filler metal. So this is what about the principle involved in explosive welding process. So that is why in explosive welding, flyer plate can be kept at an inclination of 1 to 15 degrees. So after applying the chemical explosives, so detonation takes place. So the joining can be done very effectively. Now let us see what are the main applications. So where it can be used. This is a very huge applications in some military applications and some aeronautical applications and some missiles, military missiles also can be able to use this explosive welding process, because there is no filler metal, only due to high velocity only, due to that explosion takes place, so the joining can be occur. So coming to this, explosive welding is used majorly for preparing blanks and billets, although it can be used for such applications as joining of the pipes. Very, very important. Joining of pipes are securing tubes in a tube plates. How do you secure the tubes in a tube plates? And another interesting thing, the method which is often used for a combination of the materials, especially dissimilar metals. So there is a more dissimilar metals, some difficult to join using other methods. So in such cases, the one of the most widely used method is explosive welding process. In general, the main constructional features of the explosive welding is it consisting of a flyer or a cladding process. The term cladding can be defined as it is the process of joining together or adhesive together of a dissimilar metals. And second important thing is a resolidified zone. So whenever that explosion takes place, what happens? The solidification will be occur. Due to that resolidification, there is a microstructural changes can be occur. Small molecules will become an enlarged, and large molecules will become shorter together. Again, it will be increases. That is why it needs the minimized for welding of dissimilar metals. And third point is that it is a target and substrate. You can also call the target plate or parent plate. How do you join the target plate with the help of the flyer plate? And another interesting thing, standout distance also very important. Standout distance is, if it is equal to 2x, we can go for the thin materials. If it is equal to x, x means it is a thin, thick materials. Okay, so this is what about the flyer can be used in an explosive welding process, where there will be annual and above that parent plate you can clean effectively before apply this explosion process. That angle of flyer plate will be 0 to 15 degrees, most probably below 15 degrees you can keep, so that it can be performed better welding process. And there will be a flyer plate and buffer plate and explosives. Detonation of an explosive takes place, the joining can be done effectively in this explosive welding process. I hope here the student can able to remember majorly the flyer plate principle is a very, very interesting one. And also this method, especially for the combination of materials, that is a dissimilar metals also. Some cases it is very difficult to join using other methods like what you called gas welding process, arc welding. But that this type of dissimilar metals, we should go for the explosive welding process only, because there is no usage of filler metal. Only the high compressive pressure, high compressive joining can be done with the help of the explosion of the chemicals. Okay. So now, after understanding this applications, let us see the how we can develop the special use of the explosive welding. So in this diagram also, it is a self-explanatory. The student can able to understand clearly. So there will be a base metal. So this is called a base metal, and above that, this is called cladding process. Already I explained the term cladding can be defined as it is the process of joining to dissimilar metals. Okay, dissimilar metal, that is why they call it cladding. And above the clad metal, you should be able to provide some explosives takes place. The explosives are chemical uh, detonation of the metals can be occur, so that the joining can be done effectively. And here in this point, you can elaborate it, expand it clearly about how the color indication of yellow and orange color, so that the plasma jet and high impact point of these plates can be easily done. So this is what about the special use of explosive welding. In this a solid state welding process wherein the welds are produced at the high velocity. So due to huge velocity impact of the workpiece, which result to the controlled detonation. So whenever you required, you can able to perform the explosion takes place. Otherwise, simply by keeping that, if you do explosion, there is a chances of crack, some defects also may be occur in this process. Okay, so the explosion will accelerate or will increase the velocity of the metal to the speed at which the metallic bond gets formed between them when they are collide against to each other. So this is what whenever the chemical components will explode of the detonating of the component, and where you can able to do some metallic bond gets formed between them, and when they are collide to each other. So the term explosive welding parameters, which include the physical parameter, mechanical parameter, electrical parameters, such as of all the welded materials, their quantities. So here there is a one quality and quantity of the explosives is very important, because it is a little bit costly, the quantity of the explosives. Okay, so that is why we should able to justify the requirement. How do you get this quality of explosives, and how much quantity is required to perform this explosive welding process. This method of detonation or initiation and the geometry of the welding structure plays a vital role or special use of this explosive welding process. So this explosive welding material, it is a self-explanatory, and how they can able to explain with the plasma jet point or impact point and base metal, clad metal. Above that, explosives will be takes place, so that due to that detonation of the explosives, the joining can be occur very easily and effectively. And coming to this, some metallurgical properties, this is a very interesting one. What are the main concept involved in this metallurgical properties of a explosive welding process? As I discussed earlier, the term cladding can be defined as it is a bonding together of dissimilar metals. This is what interesting. The bonding together of dissimilar metals, not the similar metals. That process we can call it as a cladding process. And it is very difficult from fusion welding or gluing. Gluing means joining as a method of fasten the metals together. So that is why whenever you can able to choose or identify gluing means it is a very fasten the metals together easily. And another interesting the cladding. So cladding also it is often achieved by the extruding of two metals. Two metals will be get together through a die small opening, as well as pressing rolling sheets together under high pressure. So you can see what are the various metallurgical properties which include that can be explained with the neat diagrammatic metallurgical property distribution curve. So with this graph, what you are able to understand clearly, so there will be one upper boundary and lower boundary. So you can see there is a one color, blue color, and there will be one orange color. Orange color. So what it means? So whenever the low boundary will be takes place, VP minimum, and there will be upper boundary. Okay. So there we can able to VP maximum. So velocity will be minimum at straight interface, velocity at maximum for the upper boundary. And another interesting thing is the graph clearly in x-axis will shows collision velocity VC in meter per second, and there is an angle, collision angle also beta, where which will increase the 0 to some 40 degrees, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 obviously. And here another interesting point I would like to add is, so here there will be no weld occurs and weld occurs. So whenever it will start the welding, you can draw this some break even point like that. If you draw a vertical line, in that orange line, if it is the right side, there is no weld occurs. Left side means it is welding can be occur. And another interesting one is low limit of beta. So the y-axis is the collision angle beta 0 to some 40 degrees centigrade. Okay, so wherever the low limit of beta means slowly it can be increases, and upper limit of the beta. So there will be for all metals together, two limits will be there. So upper limit and lower limit. The difference between upper limit and lower limit, we can also call it as a tolerance. The permissible variation size, we can call it as a tolerance. So that is why it is interesting to focus. It is different from fusion welding process or the gluing as the method to fasten the metals together, as the metals fasten together, so that you can able to perform this extrusion welding process. And once again the term cladding. So here majority of the students little bit confusion about the what is the difference between a cladding and explosive welding process. So in this case clearly you can see how the cladding is often achieved by extruding two metals through a die. Okay, the cladding is one often achieved by extruding two metals though a die as well as the pressing of the roll sheets together under high pressures. So this is what about some of the metallurgical properties of explosive welding process, so that here there will be low boundary velocity and upper boundary. And another interesting thing is straight interface, or another thing is some transparent. Okay, so the transparent what you call interference also very important. And another thing is above this exact that point there is no jetting in right side, there will be jetting in left side. Okay, and this is what about the, we have to draw a graph between collision velocity VC meter per second to the collision angle beta 0 degrees centigrade. So that is metallurgical property distribution curve, where I can able to express clearly the concept of explosive welding process. And look at the what are the advantages of explosive welding. So here what can I say the advantages of explosive welding. So one of the benefits of explosive welding is that it can produce a bond. It can produce a bond together, so that two metals that are cannot necessarily be welded together by other means. So otherwise this means that what explosion welding, you can join the an array of the compatible or non-compatible metals. So this is a very interesting one. And this advantages is majorly it can produce a bond between the two metals that cannot necessarily will be added together by other means. Okay, so the first point you can see the what you called the surfaces will be clearly joined together. And third, assembling, baker, cladder and explosive. These are the four important parameters. So how do you perform assembly? What is the benefit of breaker, and what is the important thing about the cladder, and finally explosives can be kept at the top side only, so that the student can understand clearly how the advantages of explosive welding can be discussed. Okay, and one more important thing I would like to add, this explosive welding is, so the explosive welding you can join in any of compatible and non-compatible metals. This is interesting one. Okay, sometimes some metals, if you write it, if it is not available in that storeroom, directly they can able to suppose to change some second handle things. So that is what about first point is plain material inspection. Second, grind the mating surfaces. Okay, and third, interesting, assembly, vehicle, plotter, and explosives also kept effectively. And explosion takes place above that, what you called this grind mating surfaces, and explosive cadder above the cladder. Some lines, weld lines, and metallurgical changes can be occur. Okay, so this is what about the simple procedure and advantages of explosive welding process. Okay, now let us see the, for all the process have, there will be pros and cons. Even in explosive welding also there will be a few limitations. A few limitations of the explosive welding. The first and foremost thing is the metals must have high enough impact resistance and ductility. So metals have high enough impact resistance and ductility, and the geometries welded must be flat, cylindrical, and conical shape. That also you should take care about the how we can able to produce all these components. And whenever by using of cladding plate, it cannot be, it can't be too large. So obviously this cladding process means it cannot be, even it is a simple component where you can perform better. That is what this limitations and disadvantages of the explosive welding process. So there will be blast can require walker protection, vacuum chambers, and buried in sand waters. So all this comes under this limitations of explosive welding process. So that will clear clearly. Now coming to these applications, what are the various applications of this explosive welding? So in general, you can see the explosive bonding. So that bonding is very very support, and it is used in several different geometries, And the second interesting point is, okay, it is a flat sheets or tubes or rods can be bonded, and where the geometry is for any given product depends on the any end of the requirements of the material. So, and finally, what I supposed to explain, even explosive cladding also advantages over the other coating technology. You remember this, okay? So, if the written essentially 100% of the theoretical destiny is one most important thing. And other coating techniques, what I wanted to do, what you call this explosive cladding offers advantages over the all other coating technologies, because after the sheets of the material are bonded together and they join essentially 100% of their destiny, their what you call some theoretical destiny. Okay, and other coating techniques. So other coatings techniques such as what you call some what you which apply the spray and vapor type of deposition will be used effectively, and it have much higher porosity. Same while using the casting, you can use some dust and foreign particles will be there. So that leads to be some they are retained essentially 100% of their theoretical density. Okay, so explosive welding is a proven process that has gained Navy approval for what you call the joining of aluminum to steel. This can be useful and preferable. Okay, and finally, not but not least, the further explosion warning quality occurs, which are certified or manned space flight and both aviation and military aerospace application. So this is what about the how we can able to explain the applications of explosive welding point. The first point is explosive bonding is used in several differential geometry. So this is interesting one. Several geometry. Okay. And second point is the flat sheets or tubes or rods can be bonded. The geometry used for what you call any given product depends upon the what you call on the end of equipment, end of requirements for the material. And fourth interesting one is other coating techniques such as which employee spray or which what you call it should have a good higher porosity as well as don't what you call protect the substrate. Okay, protect the substrate as well as. Okay, and finally the explosive welding is a proven process and it has gained Navy approval and all approval materials. Okay, so that is why the further explosion bonding multi laminates are certified for manned space flight, and both the civilian and aerospace applications can be widely used in this explosive welding process. Okay, I hope all the students you can understand clearly. This is what about the application, and basically in this explosive welding process the students majorly uh, explosive process is a solid state welding process where you can use provide some chemical explosives taking place and where the materials stand out to metal and genuine jet cladding layer, explosive layer, detonation layer, and finally what you will get this data. Okay, and another thing is this is what the principle of explosive welding process where you can able to perform better. We have to check even that angle between the target plate to the base plate where you can able to perform together better. Okay, and let us see these are the principle of explosive welding already explained clearly in the earlier classes. And coming to these applications, major applications means so you need to have a three important parameters. One is the explosion welding, flyer, or we can also call the cladding process, and the resolidified zone, and it needs to minimize the welding of similar or dissimilar materials. Okay, and reconsolidated what you call the combination of materials that are difficult to join using other methods. So that is why explosive welding have a three construction features majorly what you called flyer or cladding, and the second one is what you call it needs to minimize for welding of dissimilar, and finally, target substrate is the one of the widely used in this application of the welding process. Okay, special use of explosive welding, special use of explosive welding process. So where it can perform base metal and cladding, and whatever the base metal will be interlinked with this cladding process also. Okay, and the method of detonation initiation is the geometry of the welding structure, and I hope all the students can understand clearly, and we will do some more videos on the next topic. Okay, so thank you very much, the student, for putting a lot of focus. Okay, these are the some of the applications where space flight and both civilization and military aerospace applications are widely used for this drones and all. Okay, so I hope all the students you can understand clearly. If you feel any difficulty, you can uh, send a mail in order to have some further dates. Okay, so this is what about the bonded multi-laminates are certified and manned space flight, and both what you call both civilian and military aerospace applications can be widely used. Okay, So this is what about the explosive welding process.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.